This coming 20 or 30 minutes, we will have also some inputs from the audience, but first and foremost, we have gathered you here as a group of people coming from different areas in this big transition part, and what we can learn from what we have heard today and how we can bring it forward. So transition. We first have had so many details that we know that we have still knowledge to gather, to learn more about, but we know about the topics, about the areas, about planning, behavior, connectivity, infrastructure, energy efficiency. We mentioned renewable fuels, policy, ethical aspects, security, safety, digitalization, electrification, big data, machine learning, autonomous transport system, and I probably forgot a lot of other aspects. But there are very many challenges that we need to learn more about to be able to have this transition to a future sustainable transport system. So you have started so I will start with Christer and also then follow with Gustaf to how and how should we find these blind spots that we today don't know that we don't know. So any thoughts about these blind spots?
Well, from Trafikverket's point of view, we try to improve our intelligence, what is going on, and not only finding out what is going on, but we're also trying to analyze what is going on. So that could be one way, but this is certainly a very difficult task. But also looking outside the box. I mean, we are working within the transport sector, but of course we should look into other sectors as well, and not only stay within the transport sector. So have a broad mind, so that could help, I guess. Some examples of what you can do, I think.
And it was so, what the visual thing that Malin showed us before, thinking outside the box. And what if you are in this Russian doll, and you're really thinking outside the box, and you're feeling trapped in the Russian doll, and you go outside the box, and you found the next shell. So it's really also a challenge to go outside the box.
Certainly, yes.
So that's also some blind spots. What is there outside our next level and the next level? It's a great, mind-twisting thing, I would say. And you mentioned the big data and the machine learning and how to go forward with information and big data. And I would say, have any thoughts from your aspects, from your research, from your personal reflections?
What we don't know that we... well, I think most of the things we spoke about today, actually. I mean, I guess that's the reason why you arranged this. We need to know more about it. But let me first say something about this, about knowing the future or predicting the future. I think that's not a good way of putting it. In most cases, we can't know the future and we can't predict the future, but we don't need to. I don't know whether my house will catch fire. I don't try to predict it. What I look at is different possible scenarios, and then if you can get a kind of rough estimate of probability, I can say, well, then it's good to take some precaution, having a fire insurance. Then I also sleep better at night. And I think this is what we do. We try to say, okay, what could happen roughly? What can we do to avoid the bad things and perhaps get more of the good things? And then you arrange things like this, and people do fantastic research on it. And definitely, we need to do more of this. Standard answer from a researcher, more research.
Yeah, but, standard answer from researchers.
But I think
it depends.
It is. I'm not envious of the people who have to plan these things, because I think, there is enough big probability that we live in a kind of disruptive change, which means that we have to think about the big things. And just think about this rather small problem. Just okay, we're gonna program this automatic vehicles. What kind of rules should we do? With kind of ethical rules. Of course, not only have you think about that, then we have to have a public debate, and we have to have some kind of democratic decision. We're not even close to that. So that's something. And then also, I think it's important to think about the big picture, that this might upset with this kind of plummeting oil prices and perhaps some scramble for lithium for the batteries that might cause international upheaval. We need to think about that too.
Yeah, you also, from your speech, I remember you also mentioned this things that we might also be, should have taken to account, but it feels so difficult to grasp. What if we don't have any organs to donate in future, if we don't have any crash accidents? It's like really, how do you deal with that question, and how do you ensure, how you make an insurance for the hospitals that there will be some donations if you don't have an accident, and maybe if we don't have any accidents, we don't need organs. I don't know. So that would be some positives.
Unfortunately, we will. Even if
Unfortunately, you will. Okay. Well, that's I would say really like very difficult question, and we have got used to what the transport sector is delivering organs. Well, we don't go much more into that today, but I think there are some really twisting things. What about the most challenging part? We've talked so many different parts today. I will start with Carol. Do you see any, like, this task will be really challenging? All of them.
So I was very compelled by Molin's talk about sort of, and actually the whole section on behavior and sort of the challenges of getting individuals to be part of a system that is kind of moving towards some goals that we generally consider to be positive: lower energy use, more efficiency, fewer deaths, right? And so, and not only is it that the current system feels comfortable, change is hard, but it is also generational. So if people, if we live to be 100, it just takes that much longer to get a new generator. And that's meant to be ironic, but the point is that motivating individuals and their choices, I actually suspect is possibly the hardest part of this. The technical solutions are probably relatively easier.
Yeah, please.
Because I also think that probably the hardest part is not the technical solution, but getting political acceptance and how to deal with what will happen if you introduce the system with a lot of jobs that will disappear, which can create a backlash and a political upheaval. I think that's and greater inequality, perhaps, and that's going to be a great challenge.
Yeah. Any thoughts from you, Chris?
Well, as an engineer, and for the sake of discussion, I can say it's so common to say that the technical things is not the difficult one. But I think the technical things will be difficult as well. But for Trafikverket, I think the CO2 challenge is, of course, that's also political, a very difficult one. But one that is typical for Trafikverket is, the planning of infrastructure. I say we should analyze more and not always go for building a project. I just said that before. But some projects I think we do need to plan. And the planning process with the building included, it's a very long-term process, 10 or 20 years, when you talk about this high-speed train project and so on. And at the same time, we say that the innovation goes faster and faster. But in some cases, it does not go so fast. It's hard to predict. But how can we plan in a flexible way so that we don't plan very expensive things that takes a long time, which are obsolete when we have finished them? So that's a big challenge for us.
Great. The other day I got questions myself, like a challenging for me, that who would you like to invite for a Swedish fika? Anyone in the world that you can invite for this Swedish fika, and you can have a chat, and you can try to learn from or convince someone that your thoughts are important or whatever it could be. I would like to challenge this panel as well. If you have the possibility to invite 1 or 2 or 3 persons, anyone in the world, for this Swedish fika to have a chat with, to really try to get forward in this transition to the future transport system and the challenges that we face. Who would like to start? Who would like to invite for this Swedish fika?
Well, I haven't come up with one yet.
No, you have to. You can think a little bit, and then we can also, while you're thinking, because that could be also. Well, trying to have this Swedish fika and you chat with someone, you're sitting having your coffee and a good something sweet to eat. That's
I
also
guess-
about collaboration. So you can also have like in your thoughts when you're thinking now, if there are any fantastic or dream collaboration that you would like to see in future, who would you like to met each other to do this collaboration? Difficult questions, I know, but you can just talk while you're thinking. I don't know, maybe you had started to think now.
Well, depends how much, how naive I'm allowed to be, and
Yeah, so
then
naive
of
that
course
you want.
it would be the main movers in China, United States, and the European Union.
Fantastic.
'Cause that's I mean, those are the people.
That was my answer as well when the question. I would like to have Trump, Putin, and see Xi Jinping.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure, exactly. that would be, but of course it's perhaps a bit naive to think that you can affect them so much. Depends how much time we have.
We have a dream, not a nightmare.
Could
we
I
have
have
a dream.
a week?
Yeah?
I think,
A week of Swedish fika.
Yeah,
Good.
it's going to be a lot of coffee.
Good. I like that. I like that. Yeah, so Trump, Putin, and Xi Jinping. Yes.
Yeah, and we have to pick somebody from the European Union, but a little bit unclear who you should call in the European Union, but probably Merkel.
Yeah, why not? Merkel, we do that. Carol, any
So
fika?
a whole week, okay.
Yeah, a whole week.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I got a whole week.
Mm.
All right, good. I really like Swedish fika. So I would like to round out my week with that group of people. But actually, the week I would like is one in which I sit with, and I'm not going to do a good job of it. So I would like to sit with somebody from inner city Detroit. I'd like to sit with somebody from southern Louisiana, and this is just the U.S. I'd like to sit with somebody from rural Sweden, and somebody from, I don't know, Beijing and Delhi, and so somehow in there, just to talk about transportation, we'll just talk about where they're trying to go and what they, how change looks to them. That was my other thought. And then I would like to discuss all of that with the group of people that you...
Why inner city Detroit?
Because, well, actually, inner city Detroit, and you would think that I've been there.
I've been there.
Yeah. Because it is in some sense the ultimate in cities that grew up around cars in the U.S. So there's virtually no public transportation, and what there is unreliable because the story is that the car companies actually sort of in part fought for that, and whether we believe, I don't know that, but that in general that was not how the city grew up. It grew up around cars. And then basically what happened was there was a catastrophic event, the people with money left, the people without money were left behind, and transportation is a cyclical problem for them. They can't get to jobs because they don't have transportation. They can't get transportation because they don't have jobs. So I don't understand that experience. I can talk about it and I can think about it, but I don't actually have that experience myself. And so but they're not the only people that have a different experience from me. And so that's sort of why that would be my set of people. And then obviously to do something, there's got to be power. Just a thought.
Yeah, Christer, any fika partner, company?
Well, I can only agree, sort of. I'd like to. My experience is that many of these big cities of the world are very progressive, more progressive than the countries themselves, actually. I think that. Well, maybe I'm a European, but I think many of the big cities of Europe are quite progressive. To sit with the people from Paris or London and a few of them and hear what they think about the future. That would be really interesting. But also, I think it would be nice to talk to Mr. Musk about Hyperloop and different aspects of the visionary projects for the future. That could be very interesting also. We are not working on Hyperloop at Trafikverket, but we are following these developments. I think it's quite far away personally yet, but it really, certainly we need also to look at this more, from my point of view, visionary projects also, to get inspiration.
And from the earlier presentation this morning, I think it was Lars that had Is Elon Musk boring, or is he bored, or that we invent new stuff? And it would definitely be an interesting person to have in a fika.
Surely a couple of people you should invite are the head of Apple and the head of Google. They are the kind of people really going to drive the new technology, what's going to happen in the future.
Fantastic. We should actually have one microphone maybe available, and you can repeat what you said, Lars, just to have an dialogue.
I just said that I would imagine that what you ought to talk to is the head of Google and the head of Apple. I mean, those are the kind of head of Microsoft. Those are the kind of people who are really going to drive this evolution. They are way ahead of everybody else in terms of the thinking about how the new world is going to be. I mean, I agree with Elon Musk. I'd like to have a session with Elon Musk. I've challenged lots of people to get me in the room with Elon Musk, and I haven't been successful so far.
I would like to open up for the entire audience here. Who would you have this fika with, and why? Please, anyone. No one dares to say anything now.
Took us some time too.
We have taken the best, aren't we? Haven't we? You can have the same as we. You can have Putin as well. What do you say to Putin? What would you say to Trump? Oops. Anyone? Who would you like to fika with? To chat, to talk about? We have one brave person down there, yeah, in the middle.
Hi, my name is Enrique. I'm an exchange student from Spain, and I agree perfectly with the idea of speaking with people from different situations and how transport is important for them. But I also think, it should be really interesting to speak with someone who knew how to explain the advances in transportation to people. Because even though I'm like really new in the sector, I'm finishing my master's degree, everyone here, and we're all in the transport world, but many people around us are not in the transport world, and I think it's really important to know how to teach people of the importance of sustainable transportation. And I think it would be really interesting that someone helped us to teach and explain people.
Exactly. We should have some really good road models, in how to spread the word and how to, well, preach the good message. We can find names on that, I'm pretty sure. While you're thinking if you would like to invite fika, you raise your hand. Yeah, we have one more here that is brave to share this fika idea. Kent, please. Behind you.
Thank you very much. I'm Kent Salo from Chalmers, actually working with shipping. But I went to a seminar yesterday also, and today, I mean, one of the crucial things for the future, or for the future, is, I mean, the well-being of people and the social stability. And we talk about electrification of vehicles and zero emissions. But, I mean, if we don't have the social stability, we have seen cars burning in suburbs of Paris, in suburbs in Sweden, depending on, I guess we have seen it all over the world. And I mean, the particle and gas emissions from a burning autonomous electrical vehicle will be the same as from an ordinary vehicle, I guess. So how I would like to discuss with how someone who could help me to understand on how to connect these people, and even if we lose a lot of job opportunities in the future also, how to connect those people into this process, how to get people to feel that they exist in a sammanhang, in a context, yeah. How to get them. I would like to have a fika with those people, with
Great.
someone who could help me with that, to understand that, because I think that we need to solve that also.
Yep, so many different aspects we need to solve. So I'm really nice that you share your fika ideas. I'm really happy. So have you been able to think about the dream collaboration?
Oh,
that
that was
you-
a different question.
Yeah, that was a different question. The dream collaboration is that you see, I don't know, some from parts from industry or some part from academia. I don't know. I don't know, since we have so much collaboration. But the topics today is also that we cannot solve it one partner itself. And we also heard from Karin with a message from Volvo that what have you thought about? We cannot do this ourselves. We need collaboration. But what is a dream collaboration that we not obviously is the first that we think of, or maybe it is. But have you any thoughts about the dream collaboration?
This is very self-referential. We are building up this research at the Institute. And of course, we think we are collaborating with Oxford, with the Future Humanity Institute. They're also very well connected to DeepMind. But then we want to do it with industry. So I've been meeting people at Scania, and I hope to meet people at Volvo, because I think we have to integrate this with the industry, because they know what's going on and they're sitting with the practical problems there.
Yeah.
It's a classical thing how to do it.
Classical, but so important. Definitely. Any thoughts, Carol?
I sort of have the same. So
Not be
I have to
sorry.
say,
It's a
so
great one.
My dream collaboration is to come here and actually work with with people at Safer, which is, and I know that sounds like sucking up, but it's true. And
I should have added that.
Yeah. But part of that is that the way Safer is set up, also there are people sitting from government industry. It has that kind of collaboration triangle, and maybe what in my own work I could do better at would be also to incorporate just regular people who are on the receiving end. So they're not research collaborators exactly, but they are participants in the greater sort of activities that we're trying to get to. And I have to say that I don't do a good job of that. That would probably be.
Well, I think we often speak about the holistic approach, but in reality, I think there's still too little of the holistic approach. So very often, even within Trafikverket, it was great that it was formed because we work with all the modes of transport, but still, even within Trafikverket, sometimes I feel that we work in the separate areas. So if we could collaborate and have more people who really look at the whole approach, that we would gain a lot. So I would like to have some kind of collaboration on that. And also we did mention the big cities. And today we've had a lot of very interesting themes, but I don't think we mentioned so much about the layout of the city itself, that we should integrate the transport system with how we build the cities, how we plan the workplaces and the apartments, and think that is how we can improve the cities. That is also a very important collaboration for the transport system, I believe. But then, of course, having said that, we must not forget the rural areas of the world as well, of course.
So I will give you some time to also think about the last question, and that is take-home messages. So before you answer that, think about 1, 2, or maximum 3 take-home messages, then we would like the session. Before you answer on that, and before we round off and Sinisha will have the final remarks for today, any more comments or reflections from the audience that we will share today? Please go ahead first there.
Yeah, hello. My name is Erik Sidbrandt. I'm a student at Chalmers writing my master's thesis in the transport industry, you could say. The question I have is mainly directed to Christer, but anyone can answer, of course. The question is about risk-taking and speed of innovation, because I personally feel frustration when innovation is not fast, because I got very inspired this morning when we talked about we have technology push, we have market pull, but now it's more about challenge-driven innovation, that we need to innovate because we don't live sustainably. So since it is a complex system to optimize, the transport system, it takes collaboration between many actors. But it's very hard to find out which technology is the best. For example, for electric roads, should we have charging overhead or underhand, conductive or inductive? We don't know, so we have to test different technologies, for example, at Trafikverket. But how do you make sure it's fast enough so we reach the sustainability goals?
And how do you deal with the trade-offs with cost issues, maybe also including there? Because we want to test a lot of things And I guess that there are some trade-offs. So
Yes.
any reflections on how to do this fast enough to be able to have this sustainable transport system?
Well, as I've said before, I think maybe the solution for the climate change could be more political, and it's not only building things or changing things. Maybe the incentives need to be changed to make a quicker change. I also cover a little bit on the maglev, which is an older version of a hyperloop, and people come and tell us, well, why don't you build a maglev? But it takes to invest in infrastructure. It's really very costly, and it has. It is also with the democratic processes for the people nearby, so it's extremely costly and takes a very long time. So before we can make a huge investment, we really need to know that it works. And that's a big obstacle, of course, if you want a quick change. I mean, when it comes to maglev, there is one maglev, high-speed maglev, I should say, in a commercial operation. That's in Shanghai. But that's the only one. And now people think we should build a huge one in Sweden, but we can't take so many risks. So we have. So that's the reality. So of course it is not so easy to get these quick achievements when it comes to infrastructure. Unfortunately, I believe. But of course, what we can do is to make more demonstrations. That's also what I said on one of the slides, what we want to prioritize in the next 12 years, to have more demonstrations, comparatively big scale, so that we get experience from a real operation. But even if we do so, I think building infrastructure takes time, unfortunately.
And then I know we have a question in front here, Sinisha, and I have one question in the back, so then we round off after that.
I don't know, it's perhaps a question, but also it's a comment. I think what Gustaf said before, that we don't need to predict the future, that we cannot predict the future. I completely disagree, because I think maybe 100 years ago, we didn't need to rush. But today, I think we have to predict the future, or have to have a good estimate. Maybe at Chalmers, maybe we have to have students studying for predicting, instead of stock market, predicting the transportation future. Because I think what is happening right now is happening very quickly, and it's going to influence not only the climate, it's going to influence, we have a lot of these problems. It's going to influence also our industry, which is perhaps not prepared for the electrification and also a lot of societal challenges. So I think the question is more how to predict it.
I completely agree with that, but I think it's misleading to speak about that we need to know the future and predict the future. You actually move to it. We need to estimate different likely futures and prepare for that. That's sufficient. In the same sense, I don't need to know whether my house is going to burn down to take out an insurance or predict it. It's just, is it likely? Could it happen? Or how is that if I compare to the cost of buying an insurance? So that's the way, looking at different kind of trajectories and possibilities. So I don't think we disagree. But to know is too strong. That's very hard.
Fantastic to think that you disagree and that you don't disagree and that you have the same vision and you're looking at the same... that's great. I like that. Final remarks from the audience in the corner.
Anna Gacharowska. I'm from Architecture and Civil Engineering, Chalmers. And I have a question from a little different field, but I'm so challenged that I need to ask this question. I would like to ask how many architects, urban planners are present today? 1, 2, I'm the third. And I'm thinking we need actors, all actors, to be involved to talk about future transportation. We have traffic workers, we have traffic planners, and we have people working in innovation technologies, vehicles. Still, it's a lot about cities, and I heard today we avoid congestion, we avoid really central. We prefer to be outside, but we cannot avoid it. We will be in the city centrum. And how are planners? Are they really involved in the process? And do can they ask the questions about quality of spaces, about everyday life, or if the future, they should start to be involved and also be interested. So I would like to ask if you had in your last weeks, months, contact with a city planner, architect, to talk about future mobility, autonomous mobility.
So you're finding like your blind spot of what we know that we don't know, and you can give suggestions for increased collaboration in this area.
I think we know it's possible. We saw it's possible, but somehow we don't talk about planning, like the future vision of Gothenburg. How much is about autonomous vehicles? How much is, if we talk about streets and how we should design streets in the future regarding autonomous vehicles? This is a very practical question.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. Any reflections?
Yeah, I would like to pick that up. I mean,
I think I said something a little bit similar, not as well as you did.
See?
But I wonder how do you do work? I mean, how long do you plan? Do you take this into account, and do you do long-term planning, where you do for the investigating how to do the city planning, if there's going to be a lot of this autonomous vehicle? Is that something you?
Well, I think we could do better there, actually. But the thing is that the greatest impact, the greatest impact will perhaps be in the cities, and the cities, and that's the responsibility of the cities, not of Trafikverket, because we have the main roads.
Okay.
So but of course there will be autonomous cars everywhere. But in my mind, that could be one collaboration actually. Yeah. The cities of Stockholm, Gothenburg, and so on. Maybe Trafikverket should work more together with them to analyze that situation. I think there's a lack of collaboration there.
Because there are these plans like 30 years ahead in the future, but so far...
12 years in this case, that plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so far I looked at it for the Stockholm region, there was no mentioning of autonomous vehicles.
That's
and taking
strange.
that into account.
See, we found a blind spot. Interesting. So we have 1 more minute before finish. I will close and I have these final remarks. And I gave you a little task just before we started this one. So take home messages. 1, 2, or maximum 3 per the participants here. Who would like to start?
Well, we should take into account this possibility of this disruption with autonomous vehicle when we do this kind of infrastructure planning.
Yeah,
so
that's a take-home message.
That's obviously something we need to do more.
That's a take-home message. Anything else?
I guess I have 2 fairly obvious ones, but it seems to me that the way to sort out whether you've missed something is, 1, to talk to as many different people as you possibly can, which includes, urban planners and just disciplines that are people working in disciplines that you wouldn't expect. Social sciences.
More fika.
More fika. Social science fika.
One of them.
And,
talk to people.
Yes, talk to people. And then the other one is data, which is to say that if you aren't gathering information with a bit of almost a lack of purpose, sort of broad, then it's very hard to it's very hard to measure anything if you're not trying to measure it.
Thanks. Christer, any take-home messages?
Well, I can repeat what I said before, that we should integrate the transportation system more in the development of the whole society. But then secondly, I think that everyone should try to be a little bit more interested in what they don't work with within this transportation area, because we all have our favorite themes and we investigate that and we burn for this. This is so interesting and so on. But if we all learn more about other areas, we will all have a better holistic approach for the future.
And I would also like to repeat the first message that we got. What is transition? And the transition, what John defined, is you need I thought I'd have it here, but it's the 3 keywords. You probably remember them better than me. So I'm Skavlan, and then I have all these papers, and I have them thrown back on all around me. So I would say thank you very much for this part. Don't forget that Sinica will have the final word. So this is just the end of this panel here. And thank you so much for coming here. And see you. Sometimes.